The armada of 10 obsidian dreadnoughts loomed in the emptiness, and the Supreme Arbiter felt a knot of apprehension tighten in his gut. He had prayed to the divine triad that this day would never come, yet here he was, staring out at these ships, bristling with weaponry, manned by the Drens were the most feared marauders in the galaxy. They were known for traveling from star system to star system, planet to planet, and demanding tribute and obedience. Those who dared to resist against their might faced the threat of complete destruction, and no civilization had ever managed to emerge victorious. The Supreme Arbiter was saved because the Drain, despite their superior technological capabilities, was a notoriously bad negotiator. With their immense power, they could have extracted much more from the civilizations they subjugated, but they frequently settled for a small portion of what they could have demanded. The leaders of the Interplanetary Coalition sent him and 12 other envoys to talk before the Drens chose to simply destroy them, putting them in an untenable situation as the Drens approached the Coalition's borders. As the view screen flashed to light, exposing the drenched, his twin hearts raced in his chest. The commander's appearance was unremarkable at first glance. He had an angular face and green skin. However, his eyes were sharp and scanned each delegate with an unsettling intensity. The Supreme Arbiter spoke in a slightly trembling voice, saying, "Honored Dren Commander, we are grateful for the opportunity to engage in these negotiations." The translator translated the words, which the commander said. "Thank you, Commander." The commander's attitude did not change, but his eyes did soften. A muffled cough of laughter emerged from the Supreme Arbiter, who responded with a nod of his head. "We appreciate your patience and forbearance." The Supreme Arbiter, one of the other representatives and a representative of the most recent race to join the coalition, humans, spat a menacing gaze at the human representative, deeming it premature for someone who had only joined the coalition a few cycles prior to engaging in such crucial talks. Nevertheless, in order to comply with coalition law, each member race was required to submit a delegate. The Supreme Arbiter said, "Mighty Commander, the coalition offers you the 3rd sector of our home system from the Dren Commander." The Dren Commander snapped, "What do you offer to prevent your annihilation swallowing hard?" "From the star row to the planet Trix, which has 30 planetary bodies and their moons, hundreds of mineral-rich asteroids." The commander then leaned back, seeming disillusioned and uninterested. He waved a hand at the view screen while the other representatives presented their bids one after another. They all bowed profoundly and pledged to give over large portions of their domains. Untold riches and even entire fleets of ships were available when it came time for the human race's most powerful and revered commander to step up and refuse to bow, much to the Supreme Arbiter's dismay as the newest member of the coalition. "We are unable to provide any of our resources or territory." The Supreme Arbiter's eyes widened in terror as he asked, "What am I doing?" But the man went on, "All we can offer you is a big glass of shut the hell up." Shockingly, the other representatives in the room became silent. Fearing that they were all doomed, the Dren Commander, who had been aimlessly staring around, sprang back to the view screen, his eyes narrowing dangerously. He yelled, his voice shaking with hatred, before the human could say anything else. Representative gestured toward him. With a faint smirk, the human glanced about while the DRA commander examined him closely. "I'm curious as to what you meant to convey when you implied defiance." The Dren Commander roared quiet worm as the Supreme Arbiter stammered out an apology. Pointing to the human, "I want him to speak for himself." The person boldly walked forward. "I apologize. There seems to be some uncertainty, Commander. I intended to make it very clear that we would never kneel, and I did not want to suggest defiance." The Supreme Arbiter felt his legs give out, indicating that they were all doomed. The human continued, saying that maybe if I ordered you to return to your home country and do heinous crimes with your own mothers, that might help. Meaning would be more apparent. Does this make my stance more clear to you? The commander of the drenched people heard the translator repeat the human's remarks twice more before focusing his gaze on the person and ordering silence, even though the chamber was already silent. Finally, he uttered he replied confidently, a broad smile growing across his lips. "We have been searching for you." The human was surprised to hear that. "You know nothing about us." The Draw commander smiled a cold laugh. "Oh, but I do. I know you joined this coalition recently," before he started settling down. "Taking a seat again, I am aware that you quickly realized you were predators among prey, and that none of these other races could have a chance against you. I know you recognize there must be more," the Dran commander said to the human as it stiffened but remained mute. "Something worthy of your strength exists. You are a competitive and conflict-loving race, and I can tell since we have the same blood type," the human eventually said, carefully selecting his words. "I thought I knew you, but I was wrong. But now that I think I understand, could you kindly clarify?" The human was invited by the Drason commander, who inhaled deeply. You felt comfortable and stifled, confined among people you knew weren't on the same level as you. The galaxy gives you trinkets to make you feel better, because they believe you are bullies. Not because you are stupid, but rather because you don't care about such things. You push them in search of a worthy opponent out of dread of boredom more than intimidation. Above all, because life cannot exist without difficulty, you fear growing weak and pitying only the weak. As a result, you now have came to the understanding that you experience the same emotions as we do. My race has a proverb that states that when the two greatest meet, they must battle the dragon command. The Supreme Arbiter and the other delegates remained silent, uncertain of what would happen next. ER nodded, but his face was sorrowful. "We're on the brink. Do we fight or choose a different route?" The individuals ceased their pacing and turned to face the commander. "In my gut, you don't feel like an enemy. Instead, you feel like a brother," the man said. Commander gave a nod. "We have been looking for you for a long time, not just to see how strong we could be in combat, but also because we were looking for something more. Now that we have discovered you, I don't want to go on that path because I have a better idea." The person smiled and said, "Why don't you come?" The child commander laughed. "We'll prepare for transport to your vessel, not this one." To which the human answered, "We have a few drinks, throw some food on the grill, and discuss our future." The translator did not understand half of what he said, but it sounded nice. The Supreme Arbiter was taken aback by this revelation, but the Dren commander chuckled heartily, saying, "I knew I liked your race." Commander the human also stated that since we both enjoy competition, the battle cruiser was hidden behind the closest moon in case we met there. What do you think? The Dren commander's eyes glowed with wonder as she spoke about sports and showed interest in them. "Sports. Please tell me more about this human representative tournament of yours." Sports involving physical and mental skill, strategy, and teamwork are known as John grinded sports. Think of it as a method to satisfy our need for challenge and competitiveness in a controlled environment. From enormous team-based games to one-on-one duels, they allow us to push our boundaries, test our strengths, and improve ourselves without the damage of war. The Rayan commander pushed forward. His curiosity grew fascinating. "Could you provide me with an example?" John nodded. "Without a doubt, one of the most well-liked games in the world is soccer, sometimes known as football in some regions. It features two teams of 11 players each, and the purpose is to score goals by putting the ball into the opposing team's net while adhering to certain regulations. This calls for endurance, strategy, teamwork, and agility. With carefully narrowed eyes, the Dren commander engaged in a game of skill and strategy. That seems good, and it seems like a great method to test our skills without needless bloodshed. Precisely, John acknowledged that there are a variety of these sports, some of which place an emphasis on strength, others on speed, strategy, or precision. Some even simulate combat situations without any actual risk, which helps us maintain our competitive edge. The leader of the Dren looked thoughtfully from a distance. Your suggestion seems intriguing on the surface since it provides a means of interaction without the necessity for ongoing conflict, and I believe that our people would be keen to take part in such contests. John grinned more and said, "I'm glad you think so. Maybe we could set up a series of matches." If I may tentatively speak out, the Supreme Arbiter, who had remained mute until now, might allow our greatest warriors and athletes to learn from one another and forge a connection of mutual respect. This could be a historic opportunity for everybody. The other ambassadors, still reeling from the shock of the previous exchange, started nodding in agreement. It seemed like a good idea to use the DRA's need for competition for something positive. The Dren commander stood up his imposing figure. A lengthy shadow is being projected across the view screen. "Very well, human. We will approach your warship and continue our discussion. If your plan is as strong as you say it is, it might usher in a new era for our people." John bent a little. "Thank you, Commander. We are looking forward to seeing you." As the view screen went dark, the Supreme Arbiter turned to face John. His expression was one of both amazement and shock that they might have just saved a human life from a cosmic war. Shrugging modestly, sometimes finding common ground is all that's needed. Boldness, and perhaps with a hint of audacity, the Supreme Arbiter nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Let's get ready for our guests, and make sure that this meeting creates the conditions for a future in which mutual growth, not destruction, can result from our competition." As preparations got underway, the delegates exuded a strong sense of hope that despite the uncertainty of the road ahead, a new sort of unity was possible. One that was built by mutual respect and purpose, rather than by intimidation or fear, and at its core was the unwavering humanity willing to use the straightforward yet profound power of competitiveness to turn possible adversaries into allies. Subscribe to watch more amazing sci-fi stories.